Hello, my name is Greta Fahy. I live 7 miles west of Claremorris, Ireland. In the distant past, I was subject to remote neural monitoring and a brain-to-brain interface. During that time, I've had many experiences, which I wrote about on my website, which is called targeted-individuals-ireland.net. I'd like to read out two short paragraphs that I wrote previously about two of the experiences I experienced when I was subject to this remote neural monitoring and a brain-to-brain interface technology in the distant past. Targeted individuals of remote neural monitoring are having their mind's eye read by neuroweapons experts. This is achieved by the neuroweapons expert speaking to the targeted individual by means of brain-to-brain interface technology, which the targeted individual hears coming from inside their heads. The neuroweapons expert first asks the targeted individual a question about a particular past event in the life of the targeted individual. Even if the targeted individual refuses to answer the question, these are questions that are being asked by remote means. You don't actually see anybody. Even if the targeted individual refuses to answer that particular question, an image pertaining to that event comes up in the mind of the targeted individual, and the neuroweapons expert, using brain-to-brain interface, can see that image and can decide whether the targeted individual is guilty or innocent of committing a crime, or if they can decide if the targeted individual was at a crime scene at a time in the distant past pertaining to that question. The digital signals containing this image are transmitted via brain-to-brain interface by long-range Wi-Fi via telephone towers to the brain of the neuroweapons expert. We have no secrets anymore at all whatsoever, because these neuroweapons researchers, they're criminals. I believe they're criminals. Can ask us any question. If you are subject to remote neural monitoring, you can be asked any question at all about your past, and you will bring up an image in your mind's eye, and these criminal neuroscientists can read it. They can ask you questions about extremely private events in your past. You know, many years ago when you were a child or a young adult, and then you will imagine a scene from that time in your mind's eye, and the neuroweapons expert can have access to that private memory. We have no privacy anymore whatsoever. So be wary of that, because anybody at all can be subject to remote neural monitoring. There is no defense against it as far as I know. Perhaps there is, but I don't know what it is. I am not the only one experiencing this. Many other people throughout Ireland who I know personally have experienced this also. And throughout the rest of the world, almost every country, hundreds of people are coming forward from almost every country in the world, claiming that they also have been victims subject to remote neural monitoring and brain-to-brain interface. There is another issue I wish to discuss, which I also experienced in the distant past, which is even more frightening than that one. Decoding followed by re-encoding the motor cortex, subsets of the motor cortex of unwilling human beings by long-range Wi-Fi explains the recent phenomenon of both shape-shifting, and demonic possession. The whole face of a targeted individual can be moved and contorted against their will by remote means. When you are subject to brain-to-brain interface, if the neuroscientist speaks to you, and if your brain has already been mapped a good deal, then your whole mouth and face and chin and tongue will move in harmony with the words of the neuroweapons tester. And when the neuroweapons tester grimaces, your face will grimace as well. And if the neuroweapons tester shouts, he can force you to shout and swear as well. And he can force your face to grimace. I have experienced this in the distant past when I was a subject of remote neural monitoring. If the neuroweapons expert shouted at me and forced speech to me, I would be made to swear, and my whole face would contort at the same time, and my face and my head was forced to nod and shake totally against my will. This technology is extremely evil. It's extremely evil, and it's in the hands of arch criminals. And as far as I know, they're picking on lots of people, and they wish to frighten everybody else on the planet by what they're going to do to some of the people who are already subject to remote neural monitoring against their will. But if we know exactly what's happening, if the human race know exactly what's happening and how it's happening, they will not be frightened, because we are only frightened of the unknown. So that is why I'm explaining to you exactly what this brain weapons research is capable of nowadays, so that the human race will wake up and they will know how to stop it, because there are lots of independent scientists out there. Once they know what is happening and why it's happening, and that there are no such thing as demonic possessions or shape-shifting or extraterrestrials, these are all just cover stories, ridiculous cover stories to cover the existence and abuse of directed energy weapons and remote neural monitoring, then we can easily solve the problem. So, okay, so I have written a website which outlines my experiences in great detail. I wrote every single thing I could possibly think of my experiences of being a subject of remote neural monitoring in the distant past, so that somebody might read it and they might solve the problem forever and provide all of the other current targets of remote neural monitoring with shielding or jamming methodologies. So my website is called targetedindividualsireland.net. Okay, thank you very much for listening to this video.